Internationalizing institution. ไม่
May I? All right, so let us move next to the topic best practices for internationalizing institutions. And in this session, a family affair, and actually my former boss. Right, okay. I have a great honor to welcome Associate Professor Dr. Surakit Nathisuwan, Deputy Dean for Planning and Quality Development, Faculty of Pharmacy, Mahidol University, Thailand, as the guest moderator for this session. Associate Professor Nathisuwan, please.
Good morning, everyone, and Sawadee krab. I think we have been primed since yesterday about the internationalization, especially at the national policy level. And I think this session will be very instrumental, and it will be quite an eye-opening to hear from different best practice from the various institutions. And I think it's quite important when you think about it that the government can dream as high as they can, but the most important key actor in pushing those national policies or those dreams into a reality is in fact the higher education institutions. And today we have such a privilege to have 5 best practice models from 5 different countries. We have Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, China, and Thailand on the stage here. And each speaker will be given 20 minutes to present their best practice model. And then may I ask you to reserve your questions up at the end of each sessions. Please write that down and then get it ready. When every speakers complete their speech, we will have perhaps about 20 minutes of Q&A. And I expect to have a lot of fun discussion and very enlightening exchange on these issues. And of course, we will go by the first speaker. The first speaker is Professor Tai Yong. He has received many of the experience in managing international education at National University of Singapore. He used to serve as a dean, vice provost, and then executive vice president, and he's now currently the president and professor of humanities history at Yale-NUS College. Please welcome Professor Tan.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Professor Nathisuwan, for your kind introduction. I also want to take the opportunity to thank the organizers for allowing me the opportunity to participate in this conference. It's been very useful for me. I've learned much from the various presentations that I heard yesterday, and many of the things that were said by the speakers, the keynote speakers yesterday and this morning resonated deeply with me as we deal with issues of internationalization at this new college in Singapore called Yale-NUS College. Now, this is a new college, the first liberal arts college established in Singapore. And because it is so new, not many of you may be familiar with it. So I'm going to make a brief introduction of Yale-NUS before I proceed to talk about what we try to do in there. Now, Yale-NUS is a kind of a joint effort created by 2 universities, Yale and the National University of Singapore. Now, I want to clarify that this is a unique model because it is very unlike the kinds of liberal arts colleges that are operating in this part of the world that you may be familiar with, like NYU, Abu Dhabi, NYU Shanghai, because these, in a sense, are satellite campuses. They are actually part of the main university, the mother campus, and they are established as offshoots in different parts of the world. Yale-NUS is not like that. It is a true hybrid entity that draws from 2 universities, but is highly autonomous in what it is able to do in itself. I don't report to the president of Yale, nor to the president of NUS. I have a governing board that in a way guides the functions and the directions of the college. So we are our own entity, but we are privileged in that we are able to draw genealogy and also resources from two great universities. Now, we are a small college, so many of the things that I'm going to be sharing today may not be relevant to big universities. At steady state, we will only have 1,000 students because we are a small liberal arts college that is built on very sort of cozy, intense personal relationship between faculty and students. So we're limiting intake to 1,000 students at steady state. We have 120 faculty, so the faculty to student ratio is about 1:8 or 1:10, depending on how you count it. So it's in a way, something that allows us to teach in very small seminar-sized groups. We are a full residential program. In other words, all students have to live in college for 4 full years. It's not optional, it's mandatory. Now, as I'll explain later, this allows us to do a number of things within the college and with our students, and allows us to develop initiatives that range from curricular to experiential learning, because we require all of them to stay together. So this is where we are at this point in time. The college is 5 years old. We've graduated 2 batches of students, and I'll say that for the first batch, we were a little anxious because liberal arts and sciences is a very new concept in Singapore, and I'm sure in Asia as well. And many parents were a little anxious, wondering if their son or daughter, upon entering the college and having a liberal arts education, will be able to find jobs after that. They're not trained as engineers, lawyers, or doctors. Liberal arts, what's that? And we did have some misunderstandings earlier on, because students coming thinking that they'll come and learn painting and dancing, and then being disappointed after 1 semester that this is not what we do. So it's a new concept, but 2 batches of graduates already, and from early indications, they seem to be doing well. And if the graduates are doing well, then it is an indication of what we're doing in the college and whether those are effective or not. So we take that as an indicator, as a marker. Now, as a new college, we also had the opportunity of starting on a blank sheet, in a sense. We were able to develop something which we thought would be useful for a liberal arts college to pursue in an Asian context and in the 21st century. So the mission that was given to us by the founders was to try to redefine liberal arts education for a complex and interconnected world. Now, of course, liberal arts colleges have existed in the United States for hundreds of years. So what is it that we are trying to do? Clearly, we weren't trying to duplicate or replicate a Western model and have it sitting in Asia and then doing things that are American. So this gives us an opportunity to redefine and create and innovate. And as our keynote speaker Jamil told us yesterday, the ability to start from afresh, where you can draw from many traditions, either through a merger or a consortium or whatever, gives you an opportunity to create something interesting and innovative. And this is exactly what we're trying to do. So what guides us in framing our programs and thinking of what we should do? This is the vision statement of the college. Now, it's actually very easy to remember, and we make sure that all the students must learn it by heart. And it's written in a form of a Japanese haiku, right? But not exactly in the same number of words. So it is a community of learning founded by 2 great universities in Asia for the world. Now, if you untangle or unpack each of these lines, you will understand why internationalization or the international experience is actually embedded in the way we function. It's not an add-on, it's not something you sort of put together because it is good to have or it's important to have, all universities have it, but it's embedded, it's very much part of the DNA of the college. A community of learning. The community is very important because it is not about 3 or 4 different groups of people. It is a community where students, faculty, staff learn from one another. And this is an important emphasis. And it is a community that learns both inside the classroom and outside the classroom. And the community is purposely put together for a common objective. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the recruitment of students, enrollment in a while. Founded by 2 great universities. Now, this is where we are able to draw the traditions across borders. of Yale University, which has a 300-year, very rich legacy of organizing liberal arts colleges, residential learning, and of the National University of Singapore, which is an up-and-coming university, very steep in STEM subjects, science and technology. So if you are able to put together these two great traditions and are able to draw upon the resources of these two great universities, then you have already a great start. In Asia, for the world, very important, because we must remember that we are located in Asia. And this is where you learn to engage Asia as a rising region. It's going to be very, very important in the 21st century and how Asia relates to the world. So by being in location here, you are offered an opportunity to see things and learn things that you may not be able to do in the US. And of course, not forgetting what Pontit told us this morning, global citizenship. It must be for the world. So what we're trying to do is to create global citizens out of the people who are in our community. Now, I said I will talk a little bit about the community first. Now, you will be wondering why 918, such a strange number. I said 1,000. It's because when we started, we didn't have full facilities, so we didn't take in the full number of students. At each cohort, we will take in 250 students. So it's 4 years, full residential, it's 1,000. But when we started, we took in smaller numbers because of facilities. We are now almost there, 918 at latest count. And they come from 66 countries. Now, is this, again, another numbers game that we are playing? Actually not. We are very conscious in wanting to put together a community. So our admissions team works very hard to ensure that we adopt what we call a holistic admissions process. In other words, we don't use a simple cutoff in terms of your high school score or whatever. We look at every candidate. Every applicant has to write 5 essays, and we receive about 8,000 applications every year for 250 places. 8,000 for 250 places. Of these 8,000, after a quick round of sifting, we are down to 1,000, and these 1,000 students, local as well as international, are interviewed individually. If they are not here, we interview them by Skype. If they are here, we bring them in, one-on-one, we'll talk to them. Because we are looking at the individual, we want to know what can you offer to the college. We are building a community. We want to know whether your talents, your interests, your intellectual curiosity will come together nicely to form a community. We don't want to build a loose pack of sand. So this is very important. So when we talk about enrollment, it is a very purposeful approach. And we don't want one big group to dominate. Now, by charter, because we are paid, we are supported by the Ministry of Education, 50% of our population have to be from Singapore. And that's also because this is the first liberal arts college in Singapore, possibly in the region. And the Singapore government wants more locals to be able to benefit from this sort of educational experience. But the rest, the other 50% from all over the world. So I have students from Latin America, from Southeast Asia, from North America, from Europe, Australasia, and so on and so forth. But the whole thing is put together purposefully. In other words, we want to build a community. It's not left to chance, or it's not decided simply by your grades. When they come in, we put them through our curriculum. And in this way, the curriculum is also one that is thought out to see how we can, in a way, broaden the kinds of exposure that our students have, and also to engage them in cross-boundary interdisciplinary engagement. So our curriculum is divided into 3 parts. The first part is called the common curriculum. That is what all students have to do in the first 3 semesters of their stay here. Then we have electives, which account for 33%, and then the majors for 33%. Now, for those of you from traditional universities, you will realize that this is the inverse of what you would normally do, right? Your majors would account for 70%, but here the major accounts for only 33%. Now, the common curriculum is a very unique feature of the college, and it is, again, developed because we had the opportunity to do something new. So we ask ourselves this simple question: what must a young person learn in order to lead a responsible life in this century? So we build that into the common curriculum, and the common curriculum is common because every student goes through the same module. It is prescribed. In other words, we are not adopting the distribution model where you say, do a little bit of courses in humanities, do a little bit of courses in social sciences, do a little bit of courses in science, and you go and do what you want. We prescribed every individual course because we want students to go through the same common experience. We want them to build the same foundations. And we think it's important that they have that range of subjects from the humanities to quantitative reasoning and sciences to give them the strong foundations for them to develop truly a liberal arts mindset. So based on this, we have the common curriculum, which, as I said earlier, spans the humanities, social sciences, and sciences, and very importantly, incorporates both Asian and Western thought and perspectives. So I'll show you some of the books the students have to read in a while. Now, if you study liberal arts in North America, you are likely to be just reading the Western canons, right? So the thing is that this is not sufficient in our view, and that if you're in Asia, you have to be exposed to a much wider range of philosophical thoughts. And the other thing about this common curriculum is that it is team taught. It is not taught by one individual. Now, this runs against the grain of what a lot of faculty and a lot of academics like myself are trained to do. We do a PhD in one subject and we want to go to the university to do that one subject. But we put them together because by forcing faculty, all right, getting them to engage one another, this is a good way of getting them to cross boundaries and showing the students that this can be done. So this is something that we tell faculty whom we recruit at the beginning. You have to do a common curriculum thing. You have to go outside of your comfort zone, your area of expertise, and then you have to team teach for a while. Are you comfortable? And if you're not, this is not the place for you. So this is something that we lay up front from the beginning. Now, these are some of the books that students have to read when they go through the common curriculum, and you notice straight away that it is a mix of both Chinese and Indian traditions and classics, as well as the Western ones, Thucydides and Machiavelli, alongside Confucius, Aristotle, alongside the Ramayana, and so on and so forth. Now, this is they have to read this. This is compulsory. They have no choice. So you can't have a student coming in and say, I only want to study Western classics or Chinese classics. Sorry, this is then not the place for you. But what's interesting was after doing this for 5 years, the students themselves are now telling us that this is not diverse enough. They want greater diversity. They say, where is Southeast Asia? I mean, you have the Indian tradition, you have the Chinese tradition. Where is Southeast Asia? So they want more classical texts. They want the Sejarah Melayu, for instance, and included in this range of reading. So if they are responding in this manner, I think we're doing something right, because it is sparking their intellectual curiosity. Now, so that's the first part, right? We take in a very diverse group of students. Consciously, we build a community. We put them through a common curriculum that is interdisciplinary, that is diverse, that privileges all sorts of intellectual traditions, and they have to do it. And then we build a lot of experiential learning into the curriculum. Now, these are just some pictures of students studying in Singapore outside the classroom, climbing mountains, and going to Indonesia for courses and in conferences, and so on. But this is all part of the curriculum that is not, as I said, added on as an afterthought. It's all planned and organized by what we call, we have a dedicated center called the Center for International and Professional Experience. And they organize right through the 4 years of a student's experience, the various things that students have to do. Let me give you an example. Week 7. Why week 7? In the first year of the student's stay at Yale-NUS, on the 7th week of the first year, they all leave the classroom. We get them out of the classroom and they do a course outside of the classroom led by a faculty. The courses can range from natural history to the planets, to food culture, to apartheid in South Africa, to music making in Mongolia, and so on. These are designed by faculty and they go out. But the important thing is that all the themes that are chosen are linked back to the common curriculum. What they are learning in comparative social institution, what they are learning in literature and humanities and all this. But it's experiential. They go out. And this is something that all students do. And then, of course, we have learning across models, learning across borders that are international, and then internships and so on. And 80% of our students actually go and study abroad. 80% go and study abroad. Now, you may ask, how do you afford it? What about students who can't afford it? Well, we try to provide financial aid for students who can't afford it, and this is why this model is not cheap. And one of my fundamental roles as president is to go out and beg for money and raise money. But the point is that you need to provide this so that every student who comes in, we take a needs-blind policy. You come in, you get admitted to the college, you qualify, we're not going to look at your bank account. We'll provide some support. And then needs fulfilling as well. In other words, once you come in, you must be able to participate in all our activities regardless of your socio-economic status. Now, the third part is residential life. Now, as I said, 4-year full residential, everybody lives together. And here is where it's not just providing dormitories or rooms. It's, again, a thought-through intertwining and merging of living and learning. And here is where learning takes place, as I said, both inside and outside the classroom. We have 20% of our faculty staying within the college, and basically a lot of activities happens in the suites, as we call them. Students live together in the dining halls where the students are constantly engaged, 24/7. They are there all the time planning this and that. And here is where we emphasize their responsibility as a member of the community, where they are supposed not just to take from the college, but to give back in many ways. And the emphasis on empathy, on ethics, on civic responsibility, all those things are embedded, and we try to achieve those things in our college. Now this is a picture of our dining hall, and they have to take 3 meals in the college. Not all of them do, of course, but the point is that here I tell them it is not just to feed your stomachs. This is to feed your brains as well. And in the dining hall, and it's carefully designed so that it's a nice, attractive place for them to go in. The students have a lot of issues with food. They complain sometimes, but we get feedback from them. But the point is that they must own this place. And here is where learning happens as well. We have a lot of faculty who are spending time talking to students in the dining hall, and students have groups. And even as president, I get students writing to me directly and say, President, because I live in college, are you free to come down for breakfast tomorrow at 8 a.m.? We have got something to discuss with you. I say, sure, I have to have breakfast. So I go down there, I have breakfast with them, and we discuss things. And that's how the community is built. So there are no boundaries, there are no hierarchies in a sense. And this is how students are now functioning, and faculty as well, in this community of learning. Just some quick pictures to show that it's a very rich kind of life. It goes through the day, 24/7, and it helps that I live in college because I'm always attending this or that, and weekends are always full, and these are all owned by the students. And these are our first 2 batches of graduates. Our college mascot is the halcyon. That's a kingfisher bird. It's a Southeast Asian bird. Very interesting how the students chose this, because we asked the students to take ownership, and they had 3 options at the end. One was a whale, big, and whale rhymes with Yale. It got voted out. They said they didn't want to have too close an association with Yale. Then there was a dragon. You could be a Chinese dragon, a Western dragon, or an Eastern dragon, right? But then they didn't like it. In the end, they chose a small bird, a Southeast Asian bird. The location matters, and the vibrancy of the bird, the size, all this resonated with them. So we're called halcyons. And 2 batches of halcyons have flown the nest, as it were, have flown the nest. And we stay in constant touch with them, because it is very important. It's a small community, and that community continues even after they graduate. Now, I am told my time's up, so I just want to leave you with 3 takeaways about internationalization. So 1, my point is that internationalization is a state of mind, an attitude. You know, you cannot say, I want to plan this, I want to plan that, I need these programs, these are my KPIs. I think for a small college, we were very clear from the beginning that this is very much part of our makeup. This is who we are, an attitude, a state of mind. And then programs, in my view, should be purposeful, because our students just love to travel. Give them an opportunity, they'll buy a ticket, they'll be flying somewhere. But we always ask, what are you doing? I mean, why are you doing this? What is your purpose? How is what you are learning outside the classroom linked to what you are learning within the classroom? So there's this constant reminder, not just to students, but the faculty as well, about how to think more purposefully about what they're doing. And then finally, leveraging on location. Very important, because you need to link the experience that they're having locally in Singapore to the region, to Southeast Asia, to Asia as a whole, and then to the globe, to the world. Because it is how you see the connections of being a global citizen that you mustn't forget where you're standing at this point in time. Because otherwise everything will appear very abstract. But you mustn't forget that other things impact upon what you do and what you are. And you must always be cognizant of those various impacts. So I think on that note, I'm going to end my presentation, but I'm sure you'll have questions later on, and I'll be very pleased to take your questions later. Thank you very much.
That's a wow. Thank you so much, Professor Tan. Such an inspiring talk. And I personally have about 25 questions for you. Want to learn more. And I think everyone agrees how the Singaporeans, and especially the National University of Singapore, really craft these programs out of that vision statement. Every single word means a lot, and they meticulously going on to make sure that those things are reality. So big applause to them. The second speaker is Professor, I'm sorry, let me get my glasses, I'm getting old. Professor Noorsaadah Abdul Rahman. She is currently the Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Research and Innovation of the University of Malaya. She was appointed in August of 2015. Prior to that, she's a distinct researcher in chemistry. She's been serving in so many capacities and also receiving the award for the Top Research Scientist Award by the Malaysian Academy of Science. As a result, based on her CV, I'm sure that you know that the research career is impeccable. And the instrumental part in terms of pushing for the research management at the University of Malaya. And today she will be giving us the insight into how the University of Malaya become a global university and has been doing so well in terms of university ranking across the globe. Please welcome Professor Noorsaadah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the organizer and especially Mahidol University for inviting me here. You can't hear? Okay. This is a very tough act to follow, the president of Yale-NUS. But anyway, I'm just going to run through a little bit about how University of Malaya is approaching internationalization and trying to be a global university. Just a little bit about University of Malaya at the moment. The background, I think I was not here yesterday morning to hear about the history of the University of Malaya, so I'm not sure whether how many of you have heard about the history of University of Malaya. We were actually one university before. It was started in 1905 as King Edward's the 7th College in Singapore, and subsequently it merged with the Raffles College to become the University of Malaya in Singapore, then University of Malaya. But we split when the two countries became two independent countries. We split the university, and the campus in Kuala Lumpur became or kept the name University of Malaya, while the one in Singapore became the National University of Singapore. So a little bit about University of Malaya. It is the first and the premier university in Malaysia at the moment. It's situated on a campus about 922 acres in the southwest of Kuala Lumpur, and we were the first university in Malaysia actually to be awarded the QS 5-star rating rather. We are actually a very, very broad-based research-intensive university at the moment, with our own teaching hospital of about 1,600 bed. About, I think, 60% of our programs are actually of the non-science degree. We have about 25,000 students at the moment, of which about 11,000 are graduate students, both PhD and masters. We have about a total number of staff of about 2,300 to 2,500, depending on when you see this, and of which about 300 to about 400 staff are international. And we have about 12 faculties at the moment. We have 2 academy, 3 academic center, and 3 institutes at the moment. And we organize ourselves in terms of research, in terms of clusters, not based by faculty, mainly because we wanted to break the tradition of people working in silos within the faculties. This is where we stand at the moment. I know as an academic and as well as university, we are not big on ranking or rating, or ranking rather, but the government puts a lot of emphasis on this, okay? We started off, just for information, when we were ranked very, very badly, the opposition started screaming at the government, asking us what we're doing, because NUS is doing much better than us. Okay? So the government decided, okay, let's put in some emphasis on, building the university's research. So we start, what do we need to do actually to bring ourselves up? We need to look at internationalization, but we decided that when we do internationalization, we do not want to actually make the whole university full of international people, because our role in the university in Malaysia is actually to build a nation. And the nation is to build local talents. So we needed to actually enhance local talent, but not forgetting that, we are a global citizen. Okay, we live in a global world. So our idea is to actually make the university internationalized, but not, bringing in too many people, but enhance the collaboration. And the main thing that we need to do also is to enhance research output and impact, because this is very important and but very, very expensive. It's a very expensive process to actually make sure that your research is way up there, because we cannot beat the Harvards, Cambridge, and MITs of the world, and especially with China coming up, and they have unlimited or bottomless pit of funds. We also need to put in proper targets, and then we have to enhance our academic quality. So this is what the University of Malaya began in 2007, when 5 universities in Malaysia were accorded the research university status by the government, which includes block grant for research. This helps us in trying to do some planning, and University of Malaya is a little bit more lucky, because we receive additional funding in terms of what we call high impact research programs by the government to actually help to push our research programs in 2011. So within that 6 years or 7 years that we have now is what we were doing to actually help to push our research and our academic program forward. So in order to ensure that our our academic programs are actually, of quality, we try to make sure that they are internationally accredited. So a lot of our programs went for international accreditation. For example, the Faculty of Engineering actually is a Washington Accord program that is accredited. They are audited, and the auditors come from all over the world. We are a double crown for business school accreditation. We wanted to go for a triple crown, but that costs a little bit more, so we stayed with double crown at the moment. Our architecture program is actually also accredited by the program in the board in UK. Our medical programs, we have to ensure that they are accredited by the board in the UK, so that our students or our graduate, when they leave, they can actually work worldwide, we hope. Similarly, for example, our chemistry program, we are audited by the Royal Society of Chemistry in UK that comes, every 2 years to ensure that the program is actually on par with, the standards of the world. So we make sure that a lot of our programs are internationally or world accredited. So these are just some of the programs that are accredited in terms of our bachelor degree, to ensure that the students actually can, if they graduate, when they graduate, they can actually also work globally. And we also try to make sure that our subject rankings or rate are actually up there. We're not actually worried about the number, but we are worried about the university as a whole, but we are worried about if our subjects are not recognized in terms of where it stands in the rank. If it's below certain number, then people start saying that, the rank, the subjects that are being taught in the university is actually not as good. So similarly, this is where we stand for our master's course for business degree in terms of the world ranking, which is actually done by the EduVersonal. And as I mentioned earlier, we also tried to break our researchers from working in silos, because that does not make impact to the research output. Because we feel that we have researchers working, but the output is not actually as seen. So our previous or my predecessor used to say that mosquito bites do not actually make an impact. So except if it's dengue, I suppose, or Aedes. But so we decided to break this, and actually we started off with first 10 clusters, and then we shrink, and this is the latest. This year we started to shrink it further to make sure that the themes also does not actually reflect a certain faculty. Because when we first started, we wanted to actually break this, but the theme reflected faculty. So members from that faculty decided that they will become a cluster of, a certain research cluster, which actually comprise members from the same faculty. So it defeats the purpose. So after 2 years, we changed the name and changed the format. So this time around, we changed completely the format. So people who are working from medical faculty can also be in the cluster of social advancement and happiness. I always have to say that with a smile, but anyway, so now our researchers are actually merged, although they are in different faculties. So we have people from medical working with people from economy, and people from science working with people from the religious studies, which is actually what we wanted in the first place. We also have different higher institution of center of excellence. This is actually recognized by the ministry, and as a status, and they actually get additional funding to enable them to actually push their research forward. For university to sustain these centers is not very easy, because they require a lot of funds to actually do international research, and they have a lot of collaboration. So the ministry also recognize them, so that they get special funds in addition to what the university gives. So we have, for example, the Institute of IOES, Earth and Ocean and Earth Sciences. They have fundings not only from our university and the ministry, but they also receive fundings from outside. For example, from China, FIO, they are actually now a regional center for FIO for China, rather a reference center for FIO in China. They receive funds from the UK government, they receive funds from the defense, the national defense of the states, for research, which is good, because then they become very internationalized, and they actually have their students, or the students that are doing their research within IOES gets, exposed by being able to spend time or attachment to the various universities or the various centers of which they are members. In addition, because of the injection of funds to the university, we were told that we have to actually try to make sure that the research actually would be of something tangible and beneficial. So we have been able to attract academic icons who comes. We don't pay them, but they actually come because of some of the research that we published. And for example, Sir Rich Robert works with a young faculty member because of something that he published, and now is actually mentoring Dr. Chan, for example. So all these icons are actually mentoring our younger researchers so that they will be able to actually do research at the higher or at a better, a higher level. And they do get attached to this icons lab. Professor Nakamura, who is a Nobel laureate, actually is mentoring one of our physicists who actually spends time in the faculty or in his lab in Santa Barbara for 6 months, a year or something like that. So it allows our staff as well as our students to be attached to these labs to be able to actually do higher level research. So we also, one of the things that we need to do also is to attract international students. If University of Malaya is not known or not visible, then we will not be able to attract students. A lot of students tend to know, of course, NUS better or NTU better. So one of our strategy is also to attract international students. So with the funds, we were able to actually provide some scholarship for students to get the best students over. So we have been able to do this, but the thing that we wanted to do is to create more diversity rather than from specific regions, which we haven't been able to really do much yet. But we are having to look at this and coming out with these different strategies, maybe to actually encourage people from other parts of the region, and especially actually. We used to have a lot of students from Indonesia, but we don't have many from Thailand or from the Philippines. This is something that we really need to actually look at so that we can actually be working more with our Asian ASEAN counterpart rather than outside the region. So these are the top 15 countries for inbound students, mainly from the ASEAN region or Asian region, rather than from the rest of the world, which we would like to actually draw in. We do have one this year, which, to our surprise, a graduate from an American graduated from the Faculty of Engineering, which which surprised all of us because it's one out of so many. But at least we're starting to actually hopefully attract students from other parts of the world. These are the countries for which our students like to go in. And again, if you notice, it is basically very localized towards the ASEAN region rather than, and of course UK, because we were the British colony, so that's familiar to them. So the students are not happy to go to places where they are not familiar. They are more happy to go to places where they are familiar with, and basically an English-speaking country. But there are also, things. What we realize are, if they're influenced a lot by what is going or happening, around the world. For example, Korea. Korea now is becoming a very fast, high-ranking destination for our students because of the K-pop influence. So we actually also encourage them to go to Korea, mainly because this is another culture that we need to actually learn. And so we set up centers for Korean studies, for example, or Korean culture, which students can actually come and actually look at the Korean culture and learn about the Korean culture, so that they would not be so scared about having attachment or spending time in Korea. I don't think I will go into that, but the other thing that we wanted to do is actually looking at partners in terms of our strategy, because as I said earlier, to actually have people coming in is difficult because it costs money. So what we wanted to do is actually be international in terms of having programs or double programs degree. So we have masters, dual masters, double degree, and we have about 25 currently PhD, dual PhD degree, where the students will actually get degree from both the two universities. And we ensure to ensure the quality. Both university agree that we will not award the degree until the requirement for both universities are satisfied. So for example, one example, University of Malaya require the students to publish already before they can actually convocate, whereas Kyoto University does not. So when they finish everything, the student will not get a degree from Kyoto until University of Malaya says, okay, because you have published. So we have agreed on that. So we have 25, currently 25 joint degree. We have already about 5 or 6 already graduated from this degree. The first one being Liverpool University. And we have a few more in the pipeline where we are still negotiating with the university to see how to do this. And okay, these are just MOAs that we sign, which is what normally everybody do. So this is just to show some of the strategies that we do. As we say, once the government started pumping in the funds and we follow some of the strategy that we have actually put in through, we started going up in the rank. Okay, and what we notice is it's not, if you look at the criteria, especially for QS, it is everything else is in place, but it was our research and citation that was actually a problem. So we actually, and working with international universities and international icons, we are able to actually push that research forward. It's not that the talents are not there, the talents are there, but the talents need to be groomed and need to be exposed and given opportunities, and we need to actually give them these opportunities. So these are just some of the output that we have, and we are starting to get a lot of industry players coming in as well, international industry players, some of which set up their research center within the university, which is of course an advantage to us, because that allows our students to actually see what is happening in the industry, instead of just having to go out and work in the industry. At least they can go back and forth within their labs, and the labs, the industrial lab, to see what is going on, and also make them less scared about going to the attachment industry, because sometimes to get them to go into the industry for attachment also is a chore. So we show them, okay, if this is what's happening in the research in the industry within the university, is almost the same as what is happening within the industry itself. So it's actually more friendly to the students. So, and we started to also get increment in our research funds from international as well as industry. What is actually good in this thing is our international funds or international research grants that come in actually increase quite substantially once we started doing collaborative work, because then people actually started maybe trusting us more, I think. But at least we see the trend of going research fund coming in, such as Horizon 2020, as well as the NIH grants from the US coming in to our researchers. And it's researchers led by the research rather than the international partner, which is something that we wanted to do, because that was what we intended, that or the University Malaya, our role is actually to build the nation through local talents, but with international outlook. So I have, so this is just some pictures of University of Malaya. If you have never been to the University of Malaya, we have one of the largest collection for biodiversity in our botanical garden for Malaysia. So, and it is a garden within the university that we actually kept. So time's up. Thank you very much. And just a picture of Kuala Lumpur. And I would like to actually acknowledge Dr. Tan and Mrs. Salwati actually for helping me with the slides. Thank you.
Thank you so much for Professor Noorsaadah for sharing with all of us the journey through this tough, sailing through the ranking competition. And as some of you who has some experience in dealing with this ranking before, you know that it's quite tough to climb those ranking ladders. And I think what Professor Noorsaadah has shown to us is how the has been doing quite successfully in terms of using research as a way to push forward that ranking results. And of course, I have another 25 questions for her also, so I'll wait. I have 50 questions now. So before I start asking those 50 questions, let me introduce Professor Dr. Nicole Brigg. Nicole has more than 17 years experience working in the Australian international education sector. Looking through her CVs, she is really the veteran. She has been doing a lot, both for the government. For example, she used to serve as the General Manager of Education, Queensland International, at the Queensland Department of Education. And she is currently serving as a Pro Vice-Chancellor International at Macquarie University in Sydney, Australia. And the other very interesting thing is Nicole can speak Mandarin. And hopefully she will speak some Mandarin today. Nicole, would you do it? Please welcome Nicole.
All right, I'm the middle of the program, everybody, so if you want to stretch and have it wiggle, wake yourself up a little bit, go ahead, because I know it's hard standing there listening to everybody talking. I did study Mandarin, but I'm really not very good anymore. But I can try and do those 3 Zh's that you heard Madam Jin talk about yesterday. So it's Zh, Zh, and Zh. I knew you'd all be impressed. So I'm not going to tell you all about my university, because I think that everybody in the room knows that Australia has a lot of very active, quite large universities. We're almost exclusively a public education system, so there's only one real private university in Australia, and we're a very highly regulated, quality assured system. Most of our universities are very large. You can see Macquarie has about 40,000 students, and we're all located on Crown land. And most of our universities are comprehensive, as is Macquarie University, with 5 faculties and teaching and research across most areas. What I wanted to share with you today is an idea that we are using to help reimagine our approach to internationalization. We think that there have been 4 distinct phases of internationalization. The first was around the individual. Think back to Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo, individuals doing their own research. We then moved into an institutional phase where it was the university that was famous for the work that it was doing. Then in the modern era, we've come into a national approach where governments all want to make sure that their country has a lot of really good universities. And now we think we're in an international collaboration space where research is being shared around the world through the internet in such a way that no one researcher, no one institution, even no one country can really claim to own any area of research. And to succeed, we actually have to collaborate across borders. And so that's the key idea that I want to explore. The last time I checked on Google, there's about 20,000 universities around the world, but we often talk about the world top 500. And I know that Mahidol and Macquarie are in that group, as are many of the other universities. The things that make you an outstanding university are your teaching and research, the quality, that you are comprehensive, largely. If you think about the world's top 500 universities, we all have between 1,000 and 3,000 academics. So that's a large group of about 500,000 global academics. And we're very motivated to be internationally engaged, to drive the quality of our research, to achieve those rankings that we were just hearing about from the former speaker from University of Malaysia, but most importantly, to get those research outcomes. So you've got this big pool of really good researchers how do we bring them together? So the sorts of things that academics are doing to connect is they are jointly supervising research students, they're part of research groups that are global research groups working on particular problems. They have networks that arise because of where they worked. So you hear people talk about, you know, when I was at Columbia, I met so-and-so, or when I was at Sciences Po, I met so-and-so, and now I know them and we work together. Just the memoranda of understanding, the agreement to collaborate. Conferences and seminars. How many times have researchers been at the same conference and they bump into each other while they're having a coffee? And then they discover that they're researching in the same area. And then they visit each other. And then they produce research together. And then there's the visiting scholar and the sabbatical programs that also build that collaboration. But it's all very organic, really. And that's my key point. So if you want to think about how networks, about how internationalization has been framed, it's often been about historical networks, institutions who knew each other for a historical reason, or because of national priorities, bringing together groups of institutions like the ASEAN network, shared challenges where a particular group of universities might collaborate because they have something in common. Very dry countries will often collaborate on water management. Countries in the tropics tend to focus in on tropical medicine. So you get shared networks in this area. Or geographical locations, again the ASEAN group. Or just because the institutions are similar, same size, same location, same demographic within their country. But really, we want to look for more ways to bring together this kind of approach. So for our university, when we looked at our internationalization footprint, it was huge. 460 international agreements in 61 different countries, more than 200 joint PhD programs. And when we looked at our research on Scopus, we could see that in the last 5 years, we published more than 10 pieces of joint research with 555 different universities around the world. So the breadth of the relationships that we are maintaining is impressive. But we asked ourselves, would a more strategic approach add value to what we are trying to do? So we went looking for some models. And we asked ourselves, what research was there available in the world about the number of relationships that you can meaningfully manage? And we came across this amazing theory by a British researcher called Robin Dunbar. He did his research back in the 1970s on the social habits of primates. And what he discovered is that it doesn't matter how big the primate group is, the number of meaningful relationships that can be sustained is about 150. So then in the 1980s, he did another piece of research and he looked at the Christmas card sending behavior of the British people. This was before the internet. And he discovered that nobody sent more than about 150 Christmas cards. So that was about the size of people's social networks. Then he went looking to see this number in other parts of history and society. And he found that for indigenous groups, the smallest size group that can sustain a common culture and a common language is about 150. Then he looked to factories and manufacturing, and he discovered that factories were often setting themselves up in divisions of about 150. Then he looked at the military, and he found that 150 is also a very standard size of a company or a squadron. So he really began to develop this theory that there is a capacity to engage with about 150. And then if you roll forward to the modern era, we are all digitally connected. Everybody's using WhatsApp or Line or WeChat or Facebook or some other kind of social media. And these big companies, LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, they're all trying to figure out why it is that even if you have 1,000 connections on your LinkedIn account or 750 people that you know on your Facebook account, they can see in the business analytics that you are only meaningfully interacting with 150. And this was the key insight that we gained. So we started to ask ourselves, well, maybe as an institution, the truth is that we can also learn from this and really start to focus in on a smaller group of deeper, more meaningful relationships. And we are now going through a process of looking at that very large group of agreements, that 450 memoranda of understanding, coming and talking to our partners and asking the question, would you be interested in a narrower set of relationships that are much deeper, where we vertically integrate what we do together? And we don't just exchange students or host visiting scholars or do collaborative research, but we bring it all together into a smaller set of relationships. And this is currently where our thinking is at. And it doesn't mean that your academics cannot research or collaborate anywhere in the world. And it doesn't mean that you are adopting an exclusivist approach. But it does mean that as an institution, you can commit more time, more energy, and more resource to the institutions that you have identified are your close network, your group of 150. So I really just wanted to share that idea with everybody today. There are other institutions around the world that are also looking at new and different approaches, new frameworks to how you conceptualize internationalization. But this is, I think, quite an interesting approach. And I hope that that is entertaining and a little bit interesting for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicole, for being very short and sweet, but at the same time, really enlightening. And I think when you start thinking about building partnership, Nicole is very right on. From listening to Nicole, I will go back to delete my 1,000 friends from Facebook and Twitters and LinkedIn maybe. But that's right. We sometimes don't need many friends, but we need the friends who really can contribute and build the relationship that is fruitful for both partners. And we will shift gear a little bit, and now hearing from Ms. Liang. Ms. Liang is the director of Yunnan University Technology Transfer Center and chief coordinator of the Case-Based Incubation Center. And she has extensive experience in working out the model to do the technology transfer, and also embedded the entrepreneurship into the education, turning the classroom into an open office for entrepreneurship. And please welcome Ms. Liang.
Thank you, Moderator, for your kind introduction. I think I didn't need a flower, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm very glad to see you here. Before my talk, I have a request. Please allow me speak with my script. Thank you. My presentation comprises 3 parts, starting with an introduction of Yunnan University and the creation of task case base. Then I'll explain the current situation at task case base. Finally, I'll describe the status of Yunnan University's innovation and entrepreneurship education. First, I'll explain the background of Yunnan University and the establishment of task space. The university was founded in 1922 and was one of the first general universities in China's western frontier. This is our university. In 1996, it was included in the list of designated universities in China's Project 211. In 2017, it became one of the first 42 first-class universities of China. In March of 2015, Premier Li Keqing delivered a government work report at a National Two-Session Report Conference, encouraging people to engage in entrepreneurship and drive innovation. Since then, a wave of innovation and entrepreneurship has moved through China. Consequently, Tsinghua University joined forces with Yunnan University to create task space in response to the Belt and Road Initiative, as well as a call for entrepreneurship and innovation. Task space is a high-end, co-invested complex for college students and entrepreneurs. Why task space? The name was derived from the three English words, maker, jig, and hacker. Together, these three words describe most entrepreneurs. So the common letter K was used in the name. Task space has numerous functional areas, such as office area, one-stop service area, central exhibition area, roadshow hall, and a coffee area. Its office area is further divided into an open and a private office space. The open space is dedicated to college students and SME, and it is tailored to meet the needs of startups and college students with entrepreneurial ideas. Its open design removes all physical barriers between startup teams so that everyone can seamlessly and efficiently interact with each other and generate excellent and creative ideas. The private office space is for enterprises that have become big enough to need private office spaces. The one-stop office service area was established in cooperation with the municipal government to offer specific service such as business and tax registrations, enabling entrepreneurs to complete all the required steps without leaving the office space. The central exhibition area is a core space. It mainly displays the products of the incubated enterprises working in our co-invested makerspace. We occasionally display product arrangements with our incubated companies. The roadshow hall is a place for hosting projects and training. Project team roadshows, lectures, training events, and business meetings are usually held there. In addition, the customer service staff discusses the roadshow projects to help them grow. The K-Lab Cafe complements the open office space with a warm and a comfortable environment. In the free time, entrepreneurs can enjoy a delicious coffee for only 10 RMB. The cafe also is a good place for entrepreneurial teams to interact with each other and to negotiate with clients, because it provides space for business meetings and communications. In addition to the office spaces, Task Space provides a mature incubation model for entrepreneurs, known as the 7-step incubation method. Entrepreneurs can embark on their entrepreneurial journey, starting in a college classroom and moving to an open entrepreneurial laboratory before engaging in selected development projects, in an entrepreneurial training camp, and maybe even listing on the market. Our incubation service begins with courses that stimulate college students' knowledge about entrepreneurship. It continuously progresses to the discovery of appropriate projects and the support of those projects all the way to becoming listed companies. This process establishes a small to large ecological circle. It also witnesses the transition from a college desk to a workstation, and from an office building to a global holding base. Yunnan University knows and values the importance of innovation and entrepreneurship education. Besides creating task space for its students, the university helps them improve their knowledge, innovation, practical implementation, communication, and social adaptability skills. This is done through entrepreneurship courses and social adaptive and innovative abilities training, entrepreneurship competitions, and training bases. By equipping them with the knowledge, abilities, and psychological characteristics required for successful entrepreneurial practice, they will become high-quality, innovative, and entrepreneurial talents who meet society's needs. Moreover, the university offers innovation credits to encourage students to participate in innovation and entrepreneurship training. An innovation fund was established to provide institutional protection and financial support of students who participate in technological and innovative activities. We use national, provincial, and university level innovation and entrepreneurship knowledge and skills. We increase support for students who participate in extracurricular academic competitions to encourage innovative and entrepreneurial students. The university has developed a series of entrepreneurship educational courses and regularly holds a lecture series on entrepreneurship theories. It launched the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Training Program in a general education platform to promote innovative sensibilities and entrepreneurship. Elective courses on innovation and entrepreneurship also are available in the quality education platform, as well as for credit courses on the subjects. The university has built its educational system for innovation and entrepreneurship on 3 levels. The university actively encourages and arranges for students to participate in innovation and entrepreneurship competitions. In the second Chinese Internet Plus Innovation and Entrepreneurship competition for college students, our student entrepreneurship team, the Leaping Technology team, won the Silver Award. Then they went to the obtain an intended 10 million RMB investment by signing an agreement on the spot. Regarding training basis, Our university is a national college student entrepreneurship education base with one field comprehensive practice base and 260 teaching and practicing bases inside and outside the university. Of those bases, 203 have signed agreements with us. These bases include various types of units and organizations, such as enterprises, institutions, social organizations, scientific research facilities, and schools, which provide a variety of training platforms for our students. Recently, innovation and entrepreneurship studies at Yunnan University have made significant progress, and passion for innovation and entrepreneurship among teachers and students are continuously increased. Here, at the task case-based workshop, the teacher of the School of Architecture Planning and Design are guiding students' architecture design projects to give them practice opportunities in their next courses. Future planning and design for other task case-based areas will also be done by the School of Architecture Planning and Design teachers and students. This is an entrepreneurial project launched by the student entrepreneurship team named Tai Yong Embroidery. This team won the Gold Award at a first Internet Plus competition for college students by featuring a local ethnic cultural project in Yunnan. It's an example of a success that merged Yunnan's ethnic embroidery with the internet. This illustrates perennial rice cultivated by a team from the College of Agriculture. Perennial rice can overcome the shortcomings of most regenerative rice that cannot survive winters. It has been commercialized and promoted over about 5,000 acres of land. Trail plantations are in Pu'er, Menglian, Jinghong, and Menghai. Some varieties are strongly perennial, meaning that one seedling can be harvested for 4 or 5 years, has strong wintering ability, and offers stable yield. This is a new energy-saving, environment-friendly plastic biomass material with 70% to 100% straw content, produced using an in-situ plastic forming and a processing technology developed by a team at the School of Chemical Engineering. The main raw material are sugarcane, rice, and other plant stalks that preserve Yunnan's local features. This new type of material is formaldehyde-free, flame-retardant, and waterproof. It could widely be used instead of wood-based panels such as timber, particle board, or fiberboard. My brief introduction to task case-based and innovation and entrepreneurship education at our university would not be complete without mentioning our plans for the future. We will further strengthen our technological cooperation with universities and enterprises in Southeast Asia. During the next 3 years, we will develop task case-based into an international technological cooperative center. We will further improve its existing services, such as business incubation, investment and financing, technological achievement transformation, intellectual property rights, event venues, and entrepreneurship tutors, by building on its cooperative foundation with other universities and institutions across South Asia and Southeast Asia. Yunnan University's task case base will continue its commitment to integrating international incubation, international technological cooperation, international innovation and entrepreneurship, capital matching, and intellectual property operations into the current makerspace service platform. I'm finished. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Liang, for sharing with us your story about how serious the Chinese university are really getting into entrepreneurship, and you have shown us some of the impressive design of your learning space to facilitate entrepreneurship in your education. And we have come now to the last speaker, which is Assistant Professor Dr. Supan Tangchit Kusonman. He is the president of CMKL University, very new university here in Thailand, which is supported by the Royal Thai government. Okay, while they were working on his slide, I can read more about his history. Dr. Tangchit Kusonman has a background in engineering. He received his bachelor, master, and PhD from University of Pennsylvania and also University of Wisconsin-Madison. And before coming to become the president of CMKL University here in Thailand, he has served in various capacities, both for the engineering profession and also for the King Mongkut Technology University at Lat Krabang. And he's going to be sharing with us the topic of CMKLU, the Research and Education Platform for Disruptive Innovation. And the slides are not done yet, so now I will start reading some other speakers' bios. Oh, I can start my 20, oh yes, 100 questions, correct. Okay, yes, that's right. Okay. And I think we are doing great on time, so please write down your questions, and then, once everything is settled, just fire your questions, okay? That's a good sign. Desert, sand dune, beautiful. Is it coming? Yes, so please welcome Assistant Professor Dr. Supan.
Good morning, Chairperson Dr. Surakit, fellow panelists, distinguished guests. It's a great honor for me to be here today to tell you a little bit about the new university, which is called CMKL University. CMKL is a partnership between Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh and King Mongkut Institute of Technology, Lat Krabang. So let me first start by telling you a little bit about KMITL. King Mongkut Institute of Technology Lat Krabang was established about 58 years ago. We are one of the biggest university that is focused in science and technology. Our engineering school is the biggest in the country, and we have about 300 plus faculty members in the engineering school. And the areas that we are very strong compared to other universities in Thailand are in electrical engineering, electronic engineering, and telecommunication engineering. So as you can see, in the field of electrical and computer engineering, we have a pretty good size of resource, and we have about 50,000 alumni graduated in these areas. We have many collaborations with the industry in Thailand, and our students, everyone is supposed to, after they graduate, after they finish their junior year, the third year they go and work with the industry for the summer, and some would go on to do another semester with the local companies. We have many alumni in the field of communication, telecommunication engineering, and we also happen to have a lot of alumni from Carnegie Mellon University as well. So about 3.5 years ago, when the current president, Dr. Suchachwi Suwansawat, became president of KMITL, we looked at our university, even though we are pretty successful in Thailand, but we have so much to improve. Thailand and KMITL, at that time, we needed to do a lot of transformation in many areas, and definitely one of them is internationalization. If we look at the report from the World Economic Forum comparing Thailand and Malaysia and other emerging countries in Asia, we can see that in many areas we are now not very competitive. So we must do something to try to bridge the gap, especially in innovation. We must be able to innovate better than what we can now, so that we can contribute to the ASEAN community as Singapore and Malaysia have been doing, so that we can be a synergistic partner to the other countries in the region. So internationalization comes into an important focus that KMITL decided to do a lot of internationalization. We opened up many new international programs over the past 3.5 years. We set up a new international school for aviation, and also we have an international medical school just launched earlier this year. But having international programs alone may be not enough to be the so-called internationalized institution. We looked at examples set by other countries, for example, the Yale-NUS college. We were greatly inspired by your success, so we wanted to do something similar at KMITL. We went to talk to Carnegie Mellon about 3 years ago. I went to Pittsburgh with other faculty members, and we met with the provost and also the dean of engineering school, and we learned that Carnegie Mellon has established some programs around the world, and one of the most successful ones was in Portugal, where they partner with local universities in Portugal, and also they have the telecom industry to come in and play an important part in research and innovation. So they did that for about 12 years now, and there were many startups and spin-off companies from the program. So we want to do the same and to bring Carnegie Mellon to Thailand. So by having Carnegie Mellon in Thailand, we can tap into world-class researchers, professors. By working with people who are the leaders in the field, we can adopt the culture of the way they do research, the way they innovate, and the way they work with the industry. So we hope to learn from Carnegie Mellon. Having Carnegie Mellon here, we also open up opportunities of working with companies in Thailand and also in the region. We are lucky to have one of the first partners is Thai Bev, a big company here in Thailand. They do a lot of retail, logistics, and many other things. So by having Carnegie Mellon here, we can bring in their expertise, and we already started doing research that will hopefully impact the future of the company. So we also will award the degree from Carnegie Mellon. The students that graduate from this program will receive a degree that is exactly the same as the ones awarded in Pittsburgh. We will also open up opportunities for researchers, faculty members from other universities to come and collaborate with CMKL. Currently, we, of course, because it was established with KMITL as the original partner, we have a lot of faculty members from KMITL, but we also have many from Mahidol University working with us. Let me tell you a little bit about Carnegie Mellon, and you can see why it's a great partnership and a great opportunity for us to have Carnegie Mellon in Thailand. They are the #1 school in computer science, in visual communication and multimedia, and information technology and management. They are also the #4 College of Engineering and one of the best all-around universities. There are many companies or organizations that were established under Carnegie Mellon, like SciLab, which is a leading laboratory for cybersecurity, Metro 21 for platform for smart city, Java, Duolingo, and others. And if you look at computer engineering, Carnegie Mellon is #2 behind MIT. So they're very strong, and by having the opportunity to bring them to Thailand and work with the companies in Thailand, we can have the best or the leading edge technology to be employed and apply to the local context. Carnegie Mellon, of course, has many global partners. If you go to their campus in Pittsburgh, there are a lot of companies setting up their labs on campus. For example, Google, Facebook. Google actually moved a lot of their operations to Pittsburgh to be close to Carnegie Mellon, because they can collaborate with the faculty members and also have students from Carnegie Mellon working for Google. And we also have Boeing, Aetna, and other companies as well. So with this collaboration, our students and faculty members will get to spend some time in Pittsburgh, and they have opportunities to work with these great companies as well. If you compare KMITL and Carnegie Mellon, we are very different, but also similar in some ways. We at KMITL, as I mentioned before, we are a big university in science and technology, so there are a lot of untapped talents, and we have a pretty good entrepreneurial culture. Our students went on to start many new companies, but at KMITL in the past, we did not have a very good access to global platforms. So our innovations tend to stay in Thailand. And also at KMITL, we have a good culture for practical training. And the things that our faculty members are working on are usually very practical, which is very similar to Carnegie Mellon. They are also very practical, and they like to bring innovation to be utilized in the real world, not focus so much on publication, although there are many great publications from Carnegie Mellon, of course. And the motto of Carnegie Mellon is "My heart is in the work." So it's a very good partner for KMITL. We have similar sort of DNA, and we hope that this partnership will bring in many great things to the country. As I mentioned before, CMU is a world-leading university in terms of computer engineering and also computer science. The areas that are very good at, as listed here: data science, robotics, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, healthcare, technology, energy. These are the fundamental technology that are very important for the next generation of innovations. And we look at how CMU can play a big role in the development of Thailand. As we all know, Thailand is now undergoing a Thailand 4.0 transformation. The government has sort of put on like different areas that they want to focus. For example, agriculture and food, automotive, health, technology and logistics. The fundamental technologies that I mentioned before that CMU can bring in their expertise are keys to the developments, and definitely will help us achieve our goal of becoming Thailand 4.0. So the government last year in May, we went to talk to the Minister of Education, as you can see here, Dr. Surakit about possibility of bringing Carnegie Mellon to Thailand. And through many discussions, the government actually issued a special law under Article 44, which allows for establishment of high potential institution from abroad to be set up in Thailand by waiving many rules and regulations. So we don't have to follow a lot of regulations set by OHEC. But OHEC also supports us, so that's okay. So we might be an example that we can be successful without having to follow the rules of OHEC. And so in May of last year, there was this special law. And then we decided to pursue this establishment by submitting all the required documents and everything necessary to the government. And in late October of 2017, the cabinet approved the establishment of CMKL University. So we are a brand new university, and currently we are, and also this is a picture from last year in Pittsburgh. The Minister of Education went with President of CMKL and I, and we signed our agreement in Pittsburgh on October 2nd. The model for collaboration is that we will have a new university, which is called CMKL University. We are not really a satellite campus of Carnegie Mellon, maybe similar in a way to Yale and US. We have a lot of autonomy at our university, although we have a member of the board of trustees from Carnegie Mellon. And we will have programs, master and PhD programs in electrical and computer engineering. And we also have exchange programs for faculty members and also undergrad students at KMITL. Each faculty member at CMKL will spend at least one semester at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh in order to get accustomed to the way that Carnegie Mellon does their teaching and learning and research. And in the future, we are thinking about having undergraduate program, but at the moment, we have PhD programs in electrical and computer engineering and a master degree program in electrical and computer engineering, and as well as software engineering. Every applicant must apply to the same admission system as other programs from CMU, so they must meet the requirement of Carnegie Mellon, and we accept not only Thai students, but students from around the world. We expect to launch or have our first batch of students starting next fall. But for the moment, we have already started research collaborations, and the areas that CMKL is focusing on are AI, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, cybersecurity, and digital infrastructure. AI is one of the strong areas of CMU. They are actually one of the pioneers of AI. They started having research on AI since 1956, and through the years they have developed many expertise in the areas. They also, you can see in the picture, this Professor Manuela Veloso, who was the chair of machine learning at CMKL, and she just moved to head a research group at JP Morgan earlier this year. And in the second picture in the middle, you can see Dr. Raj Kumar. He was one of the leaders in autonomous vehicles. CMU was actually the first university to have a laboratory on autonomous vehicle in the 1980s. The second area, Internet of Things, as we all know, now the technology is getting cheaper and smarter, so we can use all these different smart sensors to gather information and help us decide and to do work more efficiently. Cybersecurity is also a very important area. We are partnering with EDA in Thailand, which is the Electronics Transaction Development Agency. We are doing cybersecurity work with EDA, and also we organize courses that are certified by Carnegie Mellon for EDA personnel. Digital infrastructure, also a great area for today's innovation. We talked a lot about cloud computing and all the digital infrastructure, blockchain, and other things. So we will benefit from partnership with Carnegie Mellon. This is sort of the plan for this year. It's already towards the end of this year, but we are in the process of admission for fall 2019, and we have organized executive programs, and also next month we have our second annual conference. We call it CMKL Tech Summit, and the theme for this year is artificial intelligence. It's on December 13th, so if you're interested, please go to the website of CMKL, and there'll be information where you can come and learn about artificial intelligence. And in addition to the tech conference, we have student fellowships that will be launching next year. We have a lot of scholarships for the students to come and join CMKL. and we are always looking for new partners. We have Thai Better Grow, EDA, Kung Thai Bank, and a new company that is not on here is called Money Table. And then these companies will provide research funding and also scholarships for our students. So we are very proud to be one of the Carnegie Mellon Network site in Bangkok. And we hope that through the collaborations we'll have we provide the research and education platform for disruptive innovation. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Supan. Quite an interesting model, the new model for Thailand. We all are very excited to have this, and we wish you well. Hopefully you wish well in this case means you achieve the target, and because that's what we want to do. And of course, now it's open floor for any questions. And we do have staff with microphone waiting for you, am I correct? Where, yes, the lovely students in the back. And anybody has any questions, please raise your hand, introduce yourself, and then tell us a little bit about where you're from, and then go ahead and fire your questions. If not, I will start asking 100 questions that I have on hand. Please, Jamil.
Jamil Salmi, thank you very much for 5 very stimulating presentations. I have a question to Dr. Abdul Rahman, but I think it goes to many universities of the region. I'm a bit surprised that so many universities are using the QS ranking as their main instruments to measure progress in terms of research. Now, we know that all the rankings are flawed. We could criticize Shanghai for using the Nobel Prize winners as 10% of their score, but there are rankings that are more solid and more transparent and more objective than others, especially when you look at research outputs. So personally, I would rather look at Shanghai and at Leiden rather than QS or even THE. And I mean, I think it's testimony to the cleverness of the QS people, but I think that in terms of benchmarking, it's a conversation worth having. Is this the best measure, yardstick for leading for the flagship university of Malaysia or any other countries in the region?
Anybody want to respond to that? Please.
Okay, we are not really using QS as our yardstick. We use it just for benchmarking to see where we are placed in terms of where the criterias are. Of course, I think there are others that we follow as well, like Leiden. But in Malaysia, actually, for our research assessment, we have what we call MIRA, or Malaysian Research Assessment Audit, that actually come from the Ministry of Education, that actually come to audit our research output yearly. So this is the one that is most important to us because this actually is close or similar to the REF in the UK, where actually our block grants are actually given. For Malaysia, the most important one is looking at MIRA, or else we don't get our block research grant. But we are also looking more into the impact of research in terms of research outcome rather than mainly output. The only reason that we mentioned QS was because when QS first started ranking everybody, we were placed very, very low. And of course, there's big hoo-ha and cries, and Vice-Chancellor lose their jobs over this. So that is the ranking that a lot of Malaysians are familiar with. But as for University of Malaya, although we are actually still ranked by QS, but the main output that we look at in terms of research is through our MIRA assessment, as well as actually we also look at Leiden, mainly because Leiden has other criteria like innovation and industrial collaboration. So I think, compared to QS, where the research component is only about 30%, doesn't really actually show you much of the impact. But what we look at in terms of the impact from QS is basically the citation.
I think that's a brilliant question, absolutely brilliant. And I think that the big problem is that governments are not so much looking or listening to QS, but students are, because QS is running a vertically integrated business with the rankings coming together with a web portal, and so they're able to vertically integrate this in a way that is really, not very good quality at all. 50% is a reputational survey, and the analytics behind the survey indicate it's a deeply flawed methodology. The problem is that Shanghai, Jiaotong and Leiden take no account of any aspect other than research. So I think actually there is space for a really, for one of the ranking agencies to improve a methodology that integrates to some extent these other factors with research, something like 70% research and 30% other factors. And it hasn't happened yet, but it's a great question.
Totally agree. And I think Nicole also pointed out that they know how to play the customer, which is the student. And since we are also needing the customer satisfaction, that's probably a necessary thing that we have to look at. But you're right that is probably not the yardstick to tell who's good and who's not. It's probably more on the, it's a tool that you can use to, to evaluate yourself in certain aspect that that it reflects. Any other question, please? Please. Over here. Beautiful lady in the front. Happens to know her.
Thank you. My name is Patanotai. I'm from CMKL right here. And my question probably addressing to Professor Tan for NUS and also maybe if other panels would like to also chip in. Because when we talk about internationalization, there are also aspects like diversity, promoting multiculturalism and all that. And I'm thinking, I'm wondering because you mentioned that you pretty much handcrafted picking individual to be in the person to be in the university. And I'm wondering beyond the national, like where they're from, do you also look at other aspects of diversity like gender, other aspects like religion maybe, to create like a learning community and promote that sense as well when picking people? Thank you.
We don't use a very strict set of metrics to construct the community. Of course, our primary considerations are number one, diversity. So we want a good mix of students. We didn't want a lot of students from one particular culture or country. So the mix is very important. Of course, gender mix is also very important. We try as best as we can to maintain a 50-50 thing. And other than the fact that 50% of our population has to be Singaporeans because of Ministry of Education requirements, the rest are pretty open. Now, beyond those broad parameters, we don't look at, say, religion or ethnicity. More importantly, how can that person contribute to the community? And we look at talents, actually, but it's not so clear-cut. So we have musicians, we have writers, we have entrepreneurs, we have social activists and that sort of thing. But the important thing is that when they come together, how do they contribute to a community? That's a question that the admission team always asks. And we don't want too many of the same type, because otherwise you have a lot of, in the American term, the jocks, the basketball players, or the geeks, the sort of computer people. And we want to make sure that there is always, at the end of the day, a good mix. In the end, it's about judgment, Because if you follow a set of criteria that is too rigid, you're going to have a composite that is too contrived. So you've got to ask, and now that we've gone through 6 batches, we are able to have a sense of how to put together this community. And because thankfully, we are spoiled for choice, students are interested, they apply from all over the world, we are able to pick and choose. And students always ask me, what is the cutoff point to get to your college? Parents ask me the same question. I say, I cannot answer that question because we don't know. And we never put on our website, this is the requirement for entry, because it is down to looking at an individual in totality, holistically, and then making a call on that individual. So that's what we do.
And you interviewed 1,000 candidates.
8,000 applicants for 250 places.
Yes, okay. Any other questions? Then looking at the time, lunch is calling, so we'll probably have another time for one question. Anybody? Please. The microphone is there.
Yeah, so it's another question for Prof. Tan about Yale-NUS College. So you were born international because, you are joint venture between 2 institutions, and you said that 50% of your students have to be Singaporean, but in the Singaporean context, this is very high because, this is very low, I would say, because universities are capped at 10% of international students, right? So you're already very international. How are you addressing the lifelong learning challenge in Singapore?
So for our college, because we're quite new, so we are focused at this point in time on just teaching the students while they are in college. But our mothership, one of our motherships, NUS, is actually addressing this lifelong learning thing in a big way. So now I'm taking off my Yale-NUS hat and putting on my NUS hat for a little bit because I have some familiarity. I was explaining to somebody yesterday that the old paradigm in education was what we call the PET, pre-employment training. You train someone up to the age of 20, 21, and all the training is done and you expect that person to be able to function for the next 30, 40 years in the job market, irrespective of what the person has been trained in. Now that paradigm is no longer valid because of the disruptive technologies and the changes that we heard about yesterday, and how careers for which you may not even know that these careers exist when you are in the university. So these things keep changing. So the new paradigm is what they call CET, Continuous Employment and Training. Now CET basically assumes that your education has to go beyond one phase that ends at the age of 21 and continues until you're probably 40 or 50 years old. Now, how do you plan for that kind of education? That's the deep question. Now at NUS, what they're trying to do is to create courses that are open to first alumni of the university and then to the public, and to enable that these courses are accessible. So they are crafted specially, say, in computers and accounting, things that there are interests outside where you are sort of keeping up with technology and changes, and then making this available in ways that work for people who are in careers, night classes or whatever, and then opening up these courses. So the first phase is open up to alumni, and the university is offering some free credits to alumni. In other words, up to 3 courses could be free. You don't have to pay. Beyond that, you pay. And then if these things work, we're piloting it now, then basically they will try to expand it to all alumni, other courses, and even to the public. And the Ministry of Education in Singapore is very invested in this because they think that this is a very important contribution that university needs to make. So they are investing resources, making it possible for the university to launch into this as well. So that's going to come in Singapore at the National University of Singapore, probably at NTU too, in a big way in the next few years. You're going to see a lot of this sort of post-graduation courses being rolled out, perhaps of a vocational nature, of things that are needed in industries as they change and as technologies disrupt the economy. How do you continue to educate these people?